years, making rants has become pretty much impossible since I, started my little mission to find information and what the heck was going on in this world, in this life, and since I've found out and have found out that, much better and cleverer people are fighting, so to speak, for good things, and have been for decades and all the time, and they are just not getting the publicity they would need. I've grown out of ranting. Tried to find information and I found it. So I guess I'm gonna stop. I think I'll do one every year about my fears, and otherwise I may do something when the future crisis that will come. But otherwise, I'm beyond ranting. But I do this one because I promised myself that I would, and then I'll leave it, and I'll just try and make my little bit of difference in Finland very small and meaningless, but what I can. But anyway, I do it again. I would feel that it is important yet to say a few things about the United States. Which again, now I know why already, but which is the most important country in human history, pretty much, unfortunately, but that's how it is. Firstly, I guess I have to say that if anyone needs to almost everything that is needed to be said about the United States, I think two sources are quite enough. Firstly, Oliver Stone's outstanding The Untold History of the United States. That's just watch it. And then there was just a little while ago, there was just a marvelous interview by probably the best journalist in the world, Abby Martin. Interview she did with Roxanne Dunbar-Ortiz, which in a way talked about all the rest of the information that you really need to understand the total disaster that is the United States, and where it has taken all of us. And the marvelous description how the country was established as a fiscal military state. That should really tell you everything. And then this, probably the most important reason why I still wanted to do this, was my personal idea that how the previous disaster went. It is possible that the gargantuan election fraud that robbed Bernie Sanders the presidency, which may have been the one that finally doomed us all. The previous one where a certain presidency was taken away from a decent man, the fact that Truman ended up as president when it should have been Henry Wallace, I think that was probably the greatest disaster in human history. I personally feel that if Henry Wallace would have been the President of the United States, the whole history of man would have been different. And our fate would have been different. But then, I guess that that's pretty much all I personally want to say. Except then, from a practical point of view, that when there was this small window, even though everything has pretty much been done wrong. And again, as somebody who's been a Westerner for his entire life, it is very sad to discover that everything you learned as a child and everything you were told and you learned to believe in was a lie, and pretty much nothing in the world is what you thought it was. But there was a window that I guess ended when neoliberalism arrived in the late 1970s. But there was a window when the United States could have, where there would have been a chance to do more and better, and through that, of course, the rest of the Western world, and through that, rest of the world. And this is also something that I like to say as a personal opinion of the current reality. That the two saddest things are the fact that education in the United States, general education, that it was not better done. It is, again, I think it is absolutely disastrous that you can have people as stupid as those who voted for Donny Looferface Drumpf, and people who still support him. It's not a crime to be stupid It is not a crime to be ignorant. But there also philosophically there is absolutely no need for anyone to be that stupid and that ignorant. It would have been necessary for the short window that some sort of democracy and possibility of doing well, it would have been necessary to make ordinary people in the United States smarter and more knowledgeable than they are. That's the first one. Then the second one, of course, is the appalling relationship to money and earning and the importance of money and lack of any reasonable welfare state. At this time there are so many people who are just making their living out of lying and hurting the world. And this absolutely particularly United Statesian love of money and work and earning a living, absolutely particular to the United States, and from there it has spread to to most of the Western world, and probably further. But this insane idea that you can actually do harm, actual harm to yourself, to other people and to the world, and it's much better in the United States to do that as long as you're earning a living. It's much better to do harm than not to do anything, and you should be respected because you're making a living and you're enabling your children to go to college or whatever. You're earning a living, and you're not unemployed and you're not useless. It's much better to work for Fox News than to actually do anything good. It is amazing. Again, watching from abroad and watching and philosophically observing it, that actually earning a living is much more important than doing good. And again, there's no reason for it to be that way. Money is an invention of man, and you could have had a much more socialist society all over the world by now. And it is horrible that people who deserve absolutely no respect, not just as members of their profession, but as human beings, that they are respected simply because they receive a paycheck from whatever horrible thing they do. So again, these two things, quality of overall education and the ridiculous respect for work and earning a living. These two things are the ones that probably are the final nail or nails in the coffin of humanity. And then as a small side note, it is quite obvious that one of the greatest flaws in the system of the United States, besides something like the Electoral College and so on, but is the political nomination of judges. Most importantly to the Supreme Court, but any other court. It should be absolutely obvious as a philosophical idea to anyone that is against the separation of powers. That's a horrible idea that they should be politicians, presidents, or then confirmed by the Senate, that politicians, whoever they are, that they should be the ones to pick judges. It should be obvious that legal advancement should be taken care by the legal community, and it should not have anything to do with politics. Absolutely nothing. And if it has, well, it can lead to this absolute disaster that the United States has at the moment. But that it's just philosophically wrong. It makes absolutely no sense from the point of view, from the point of view, the idea of democracy and separation of powers. And I actually, now when I think about it, and I may not be interested anymore, but it's very interesting. How did that actually come about? This completely destructive practice for any free democratic state. But anyway, that's it. And then I guess as a philosophical thought, but again, other people have said this. Much smarter people have answered the question, but then, you know, the final philosophical pondering that I've been doing is how do you deal with the fact that that you find out that the world is nothing like what you thought it was, and that everything is much worse, much worse than you could have ever imagined it to be. How do you deal with that? Well, of course, firstly, it really depends on you as a person. You know, hopefully you have you know, other more deep things in your life that help you when you find out truths about life and the world. But then again, this has been said by much smarter people than myself, and it is you know, trust in younger people, that they are and will be smarter than you and your own generation, and that they know and will know more and that they will do better than you have. And if by some miracle the world would not be, or mankind would not be destroyed in a very short period of time, which I fear will happen, but if it happens that it doesn't, those people, those younger people and young people, they will make the world a better place. That's that I think is all. Again, my journey, so to speak, is finished. I guess I'll be back to comment on, whenever it's necessary. Anyway, now Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or whatever to anyone if they happen to see this during this time. And good luck. That's all.